Hi, everyone. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome, welcome. I'll give it a second for everybody to come in. I don't know what this is in the corner, if you guys could say it, but I tried to play around with stuff. I think I finally got back the dance stuff for super chats. I think I figured that out, but I forgot about that thing. Yes, smash that like button. Hi, Cuff You. Hi, Birdie. Hi, Andrea. Come on in, y'all. Come on in. Good to see ya. Has it been a minute? Literally like 50 minutes. I love it. Hello again. Thank you guys for being here. You didn't have to do that. Yes, a double feature. Well, this one I get to do all the things, like put you on the screen, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Yes, Queen, I am live, and I'm live, and I just did a live stream with the DT show. So after this live, if you're bored, you could go watch that live too. Double feature. I figured I'd do a double feature before I go back to work on Wednesday, but it's not going to be a big deal. Most of the stuff that I do for work is done before the semester starts. So I'm probably live if I'm going to psychoanalyze other people. I'm really not, but you know what I mean. I might as well do it to myself. So the truth is, I'm probably procrastinating a little bit because I have to finish my core shells. I'll be done soon, though, I hope. Webs of the Sea. Hi. Daddy YouTube actually did this thing and sent me a no way. Guess what? I can't believe you said that because I got a notification too. I think when I went to yesterday, I must have hit send notification on Daniel's and I got one. We went live and it popped up on my phone. I was like, what in the heck is this? And then I was like, wow, I got a notification. So that's actually so funny that you said that. Oh, my husband. Oh my God, you guys. Okay. Let's just say he's good. The car, not so much. He ran over a train. If I did that, you know what I mean? Hear what I'm not saying? It could have been like, really? Actually, one of you would have said that, but yeah, he's good. Thank you for asking. He's just gonna have to, yes, over it. I'm like, how didn't you see it? I don't want him to think I'm telling everybody, but you've done that before, Heather? Heather, how? Wait, I'm gonna write it in the thing just so that I don't get caught talking shit. Oh my gosh. But thank you for asking. I appreciate that. Yeah, same here, Heather. Exact same thing here, Heather. Same thing. It was small, but it won for sure. Definitely. Unbelievable. Anyway, so that's why I wasn't here last night. So I do apologize for that. Thank you, everybody, for understanding. And I figured I'm giving you a double stream tonight so that'll make up for last night too. It's not really what I was thinking. If we're being completely honest, I'm procrastinating. I'm getting my core shells done. Let's see. Cat's here. The results are just as important as the news, as they say. Oh, the rest are just as important as the news. I get that. I have, you guys, I put, hi, Harlot. I was going to say, where's Harlot? Harlot doesn't miss anything here. Harlot, you must get notifications. You must be the only person on YouTube that gets notifications. Yes. That's what happened. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad he's okay too. I wanted to beat him. Oh, it fell on yours before? You weren't in it, were you? That would suck. That wouldn't be good. You got a notification. Yes, Mitch. Mitch, I can't believe it. You're not the only person that got one. Oh, no, that's okay. You can. Because if I don't, I'm going to be like, what the? But Mitch, I'm glad you're here. Come on in, everybody. Look at all the people coming. Hi. Hi, Jeannie. Who else is here? We have so many of our regulars here, and I love to see that. Awesome. Mitch was a camper as a kid. Oh, you weren't a camper as a kid. You guys, I have a tree out front. My neighbor across the street, I swear to God, now, this tree is like huge tree. It's not little, it's like huge. But it's like tall, and it's like this, you guys. I'm like, if that thing gives, it's gonna collapse my house. Like live, like on the live. If that tree falls, you guys will see it all live. How about that? But I'm like, I don't want to be that neighbor that like calls on them, but I also don't want my house to fall down. It is scary. Avoid trees, apparently they're dangerous. That's great. I love that. I know, it is pretty cold. It was snowing here. That was the other problem. So it was like small, so like half of it was covered with snow. He like had to show me the pictures so that I know he didn't just. You gotta do what you gotta do. It feels like -22, I bet. Oh, this is sin. Yeah, the heat's definitely on here. It snowed 2 days in a row with no warning. It was the weirdest thing, just out of nowhere. So I'm gonna add my slides. Let's see. This is the one I want to use. Okay, so, oh, you guys, I learned how to add something to the stream and not have to make sure that I hit add to stream. So finally, I figured something out. And I think I figured out the jingle again when we get like a new person that becomes part of our crazy dysfunctional family. That's the best family in the world. You guys, I'm going to have to take note next time not to use white background. Well, this is the thing. Let me be honest. And look, my emojis didn't go through either. But I didn't have time to make them all fancy because I decided literally when Daniel said, what's your next thing? I was like, I'm just going to go live. What do you mean? Duh. So I gave myself like an hour notice. So that's why I'm not completely prepared here. But hopefully everybody could see everything. All right. Everybody could see everything, I'm assuming. If not, I'm sure somebody will let me know. But it should say female offenders, psychology behind the crimes, live behavioral breakdown. And again, just keep in mind that this is probably one of the fastest things I've ever put together. Again, hence the black writing in my background. It couldn't be any more boring, but it's probably more the stuff that I say too, right? That goes with it. So with that said, if there's nothing else, I'm going to get started. So let's see. So welcome in, you guys. I'm so excited to see you guys. So what I'm going to do first is we are going to, hold on, make that bigger. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is go over the slides, but I break it down one by one. And then there's going to be a chat question at the bottom of each slide. So hopefully you guys can see that. It's a little bit smaller. Probably could have been a little bit bigger. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like I said, this was very last minute. So here we have the first one we have is Jodi Arias. So, well, first I should probably say before I just jump right into Jodi Arias, because I have a note for this, that tonight we're going to talk about female offenders, but I want to set the frame right away. I say this all the time about setting boundaries or the frame. I feel like I say this in the beginning of every live, so just excuse me. This is all alleged, obviously, just the normal things. It's alleged, my opinion, based on my academic experience for 22 years and my psychology experience, having a master's in psychology, a doctorate in education, my bachelor's in psychology. I teach all psychology. So we go based off of the behavioral patterns that I see. The other good news is, you guys, guess who I talked to today? if some of you are new, you might not know this person. Hi, is that Jad? Jad Thariabad. I love that. Welcome in. Shelly's here. Awesome. You're curious as to which ones I've chosen. So they're on the thumbnail, but I'm going to go through them too here. But again, all the things that I say, but guess who I talked to today? Dr. Schultz. I can't believe I just said that. Dr. Schultz. So Anya Schultz is my friend, but also my colleague. And Anya comes on every now and then, and we do a behavior breakdown together. So I talked to her today, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. We were talking about work, and I was like, and then we were talking about kids, and then I was like, wait a minute, you need to get back on the YouTube channel. And she was like, oh, absolutely. And she's like, what case should I come in on? And I was like, what do you mean, Gypsy Rose? Duh. So she is downtown Julie Brown. So we're going to see Dr. Schultz on here pretty soon. All right. So with that being said, psychology helps us understand pathways, not just assign moral innocence. So women commit far fewer violent crimes than men. So I do want to say that. So we are less likely to commit crimes than men. But when we do commit the crime, okay, the motivations and psychological pressures often look different. So for females, it's usually more relational, more identity based, surprise, surprise, and more connected to perceived loss or threat, which we just talked about actually in Daniel's live. It was my live too, but the one I just did with Daniel like an hour and a half ago, we talked about the how do you say it? Tape case? I don't want to say that wrong. Tap case? I don't want to say that wrong. The dentist and his wife, and the one where the surgeon, the ex-husband, winds up. So I thought that I seen like some similarities in that and what I just said here. So things like perceived loss or threat. And one of the things that I said over there, yes, I know how to spell it. I just don't know how to say it. I say it wrong, you guys. So somebody say it, spell it phonetically. That's what I'm looking for. Yes, 4.42. That's right. Cuff you. That's right. That's right. So commit or get caught. Kat, you are the bomb. Guess what? You're so right, because let me tell you something. Oh, wait. Tepi. 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 All right. You guys know which case I'm talking about. I don't want to butcher it. But yes. So what was I just going to say here? I'm on the phone and can't see the surf on the right side, so please read them. You can't see the what on the right side? The stuff on the right side? Is that what it says? Wait, I wonder if I could change it. Oh, no, I can't. I was going to say if I could change it to where I can make it the other way too, but I think that was just with StreamYard. Hopefully Streamlabs will catch up soon. But I realized you meant, oh, at self. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I got what you meant, though. You got it. I speak dysfunctional, so we're good. If you make a dysfunctional thing over here, I am the queen of spelling errors. You have no idea. My best friend, when I first started, real quick story time, when I first started teaching, my best friend was like, whatever you do, please make sure you do everything before you get to school and pull it up on the board, as opposed to writing it on the board. She's like, because you will discredit yourself, my friend, in like 5 minutes. I'm like, she is so right. So I'm absolutely intelligent. I just not the best speller. Let's see. Take off the id and add a. Oh, look at you. All right. So hold on. I got this. So you said take off. Oh, wait. Where did it just go? Oh my gosh. It just went away, you guys. I have to wait for it to come back up. That's ridiculous. All right. When it comes back up, I did see that, but for some reason it disappeared. So when it comes back up, I think you said take off the, yeah, I'm going to have to read that when it comes back. Here it goes. Dr. Vona, tepid, take off the id and add a. Look at you. To pay. To pay? Well, you just are, look at you. Oh, look a squirrel. That was good. I think that's how you say it. But thank you for saying that. Awesome, you guys. So here we go. Let's get into this. Like we said, females are less likely to commit crimes, or like one of our very intelligent YouTubers said, we're less likely to get caught committing the crimes, right? No, but for real, when it comes to violent crimes in particular, women really are less likely to commit a violent crime. And when we do see that we do commit a violent crime, the violent crime is often done for different reasons. So for males, like I was saying before, we might see something um, like a I'm trying to like not use like all the YouTube words, and it's so hard because it gets you caught up. Men unalive. I hate that word. Men take out other people for different reasons. So with females, ours is more likely emotional. Not always, like right, because if you see in that case that I was just talking about, Tepe. Um, God, I hope I'm saying that right. But anyway, in that case, we see that that doctor, right? He very much, well, I guess you could argue that because I think what I said over there too was that although it might have been emotionally driven, it was very, very, very cognitively planned out. So he went over that, in my opinion, over and over and over. And I feel like the person, I'm going to ask you guys before I say it, I'm going to see if anybody, I just want to see where people are. If we had to compare that doctor, if you're familiar with the case, with one of the 5 female offenders, and I'll say all of their names um, just in case somebody didn't see the thumbnail. And I want to see, who do you guys think out of the 5 offenders has that same motivation that we see with the doctor? So ready? We have Jodi Arias, Gypsy Rose, Mackenzie Sharilla, Brooke Skylar, which is the Richardson, which is the one that had the baby, and she was a cheerleader at college, and she wraps the baby in like multiple layers and stuff and puts it in the closet, and then, but she clearly looks pregnant in all the pictures. I don't know how she didn't know, or that other people didn't realize she was pregnant. But I think that's the point. I think the friends did think she was pregnant, which is why they went and like looked and they investigated a little bit and they found the baby and they called the police. So that's who that is if you're not thinking. And then we have Casey Anthony, and I should say Casey Anthony was found not guilty, so I don't need her coming after me. However, the reason I still added her was because, well, for obvious reasons, but the reason I still felt comfortable adding her picture, let's say, although I did put a little bit smaller, but I did add her picture because she was convicted of like lying to the cops. And I don't know that she was ever, does anybody remember if she was convicted of anything having to do with like child neglect or anything? I wonder. I can't remember. But I do know she was found guilty of lying to cops, at least, so we could say that she is technically a female offender. And then, so let me say the names again, because I said them and then said stuff, whatever. So it was Casey Anthony, Brooke Skylar, Mackenzie Sharilla, Gypsy Rose, or Jodi Arias. Which one do you guys think? Oh, look, webs of deceit. Webs of deceit. Ding, ding, ding. You guys, I'm actually surprised. Why do you guys think Mackenzie Sharilla? Oh, because, okay, let me tell, I'm so glad I'm so glad I did this. This is my whole reason for being here, is to help everybody like see the differences. So although I understand why you guys said Sharilla, the case is, you are right, Casey, Jodi, and the doctor they all have spoiled, but I would say if we're talking about spoiled brat syndrome, we could add Mackenzie Sharilla in there. However, if we're talking about this here, I'm so glad I asked. Let me tell you why, in my opinion, we're talking about Jodi Arias. Okay, so let me tell you why. So good job for everybody that said Jodi, and for all of you that even said anything. Thank you, because just to get people to participate, I think it's amazing. So thank you. And if you said Mackenzie Sharilla, just know that I could see why. Like, I see why you said that, but let me tell you why I believe it's one and not the other more. In my opinion, with Mackenzie, so it's the same in many ways. So we see that entitlement, right? So those things are the same, but the difference here, I think with Mackenzie, and this is just my opinion, I think with Mackenzie, hers was more of a crime of passion, where like she felt something in that moment and was like, that's it, we're done, and like ends it. With Jodi Arias, she was very much planning and plotting, right? Just like the doctor. However, now that I think about it, you could say, no, I would say that they're very much alike. You could say that Jody was able to get deeper, but at the same time, was she? Because if you look at some of the things, I mean, even if you're looking at her text messages with Travis, we see that she gets, I mean, how deep does she really get? Fantasy? I mean, tell me, what do you guys think? I do think that Jodi Arias had more of an ability to be deep than maybe the doctor, or at least that I know so far. However, I don't know. But that's who I see. I see the doctor and Jodi Arias. I see a lot of commonalities there, which is interesting because if I see those commonalities, I wonder if I apply the same things that I would apply to Jody, to his case, how I would either strengthen how I feel or change up how I feel depending on. So I'm glad that I did ask you guys this because I am going to take that into consideration. I'm going to see if my opinion changes after I do that. So thank you guys. So on the bottom of each chat, we're going to have a chat question. Okay. So if you want to start looking at it now, if you want to wait until I say it, either way is fine, obviously. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the chat the chat question that I put in the beginning of each slide. There's not a ton of slides. I'm making it sound like we have 45 slides to go over. But at the bottom of each slide, I have a chat question. For this one, it's going to say obsession, jealousy, or fear of losing control. So again, these are your choices. If I had more time, I would have made little polls. That would have been amazing. But I literally decided to do this 45 minutes before I did it. So here we go. So we have Jodi Arias. Jodi Arias is going to be our first person that we talk about here tonight. Okay. So let's talk about Jodi. Okay. With Jodi Arias, for my notes, I have when attachment turns obsessive. Okay. So, I guess I wrote obsession, jealousy, or fear of losing control. And the truth is, you guys, it could be all three, right? So I think this one, yes, you could pick more than one, Cuffy, because I guess that if I were here, I would probably, like if I was one of you and somebody asked me this, I might say, is there an all the above? Right? Because I feel like when we see this one, so maybe, but if one of you, how about this? Because I do see an all the above here. If you had to choose one, which one do you think was the driving force just for Jodi Arias? So not for the others, just for Jodi. So with Jodi Arias, what stands out psychologically is not just jealousy. Okay. So it's identity fusion. I don't know if anybody saw the short that I made. I made a short. And what I noticed is that I thought about it and I don't really get shorts. And I think it's because I don't really open shorts. So chances are, if you're on the live right now, you might have never even noticed that I made a short. But I would say, and maybe at the end of this, if we have time, I could show it. It's only like 2.5 minutes. But I go into what I think Jodi Arias's attachment style is. And if you guys remember that night that we talked about Jodi Arias, or one of the nights, we talked about adult attachment style, and I gave you guys an adult attachment link quiz that you could take that told you your adult attachment style. If any of you got anxious, preoccupied, I, in my opinion, think, and again, this doesn't mean if you get anxious, preoccupied attachment that you're going to do what Jodi does. That's not what we're saying at all. There's a whole personality disorder, in my opinion, underlining this, which could be the difference here, right? But if you get anxious, preoccupied attachment, think about it. You either got anxious, preoccupied, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized attachment. If you get anxious, there's either avoidant or there's preoccupied. If you think about it, they're like two ends of a spectrum. So one is avoided altogether. The other one, we have preoccupation or in an abnormal. So if it went to a point of being abnormal, we could call that an obsession. Okay. So back to Jodi. Her sense of self became entangled with the relationship that she was in, right? Wait, hold on. Active audio impulse device was unplugged. Wait, hold on. Let me check my audio. My audio came unplugged and it told me. How cool was that? Okay, well, it just came unplugged. So hopefully it didn't affect anyone. So back to what I said, just in case someone didn't hear it. I was talking about identity fusion here. So her sense of self became entangled with her relationship with Travis. So when the attachment was threatened, it was experienced as rejection. And it was experienced as annihilation, which is funny because that's the exact same. These are my Jodi Arias notes from the night that we went live. That was the cheat that I did. I went back and tried to get the notes from each one of the females if I did any notes on them, and I tried to put them all together. So hopefully I'll be able to, flow in that direction because I have like 10 different things up here. Yes, I said 10. Okay, so with Jodi Arias, you guys, that's why I think it's a lot like the doctor, because I see that attachment as a threat. So, or at least when the attachment was broken, because that person would see it as complete rejection. And I mean, this is like, if I can't have you, nobody will, which is why I could see why people said Mackenzie Shrilla. You guys, all of you would, if we were taking a quiz in the class and I gave this as like an extra credit, or I just gave this as a question, if I had a bunch of people that said both, like one said, a bunch says Jodi, a bunch says Mackenzie Shrilla, the more I grade them, the more I always play devil's advocate. I told you that before. It's my best and worst quality, all wrapped up in one. This is the one where I set out my husband when he just wants me sometimes to be like, F you to the person that cut him off, but I'll be like, come on. And that was a story time. I told you where the one time I did freak out just to see what would happen. And he looked at me like I was crazy. He was like, what the? I was like, oh, what? It looks different when you freak out, doesn't it? But anyway, so over here with the attachment that terms obsessive, remember we're talking about perceived control or perceived attachment. Why do I say it that way? Because perception is reality, even if it's not real. I'm going to give you a completely off the wall example because I like to do that so that people can, it actually helps keep it in someone's mind, right? So in that sense, the example I'm going to give you here is if you, let's say you get, and touch wood. So, or let's say somebody we're not going to do it to us. Somebody, our friend, her and her husband are getting divorced and they have little ones, right? And the little boy has been crying all night because he thinks that dad left because he asked him to drive him and his friends too many times to the movies. That's that little boy's perception, which is his reality. So even though mom might have kicked dad out for like spending all of our savings on like hookers or something, right? Who knows? I mean, if you're a sex worker, there's nothing bad about that. The bad thing would be that you spent all of our money on it and I wasn't a part of it, right? But I'm trying to make jokes here. But again, so for that little kid, it would be completely inappropriate to go to the little kid and be like, oh, take a seat. You're never going to believe what dad did, or you're never going to believe what mom did. You wouldn't do that, I hope. Hopefully you would just say, look, I promise you it has nothing to do with how many times you asked dad to take you to the movies. It's an adult issue. And someday when you're an adult, we could talk about it then, or something along those lines. But the point there is that if that's the person's perception, you might have to constantly feel like that you're trying to invalidate that person's perception, which could then be a fight in itself, right? Because especially with this generation today, I know my daughters will be like, don't invalidate my feelings. I'm like, oh, Jesus. They both even pulled the, I didn't ask to be born shit. Me and my husband looked at each other and I was like, I know they didn't just say I didn't ask to be born. Like, that's just unbelievable. And then the other sister comes out and I'm like, oh, the 22-year-old's going to like stick up for us and be like, come on, Ava, that's a bit much. And she was like, what? She's not wrong. We didn't ask to be. And I was like, oh, now both of you bitches need to go take a walk because I can't with I didn't ask to be born. Stop it. Please. I can't wait till they have kids someday and they're getting on their nerves. I'm going to be like, well, they didn't ask to be born. I don't know what to tell you. Looks like you bitches got karma coming around. How about that? So when we see intense impression management here, so we see shifting narratives. So selective emotional expression. I'm going to say what I wrote first, and then I'll tell you what I meant. Selective emotional expression and ongoing effort to control how she is perceived. So here, impression management, just meaning exactly what it says, but just meaning that Jodi was highly aware of the way that she was perceived by others. Hence, she becomes Mormon, right? In an attempt to win Travis over that way. So she's thinking, what is it about me that he doesn't like? Not realizing that there were a bunch of things. That wasn't the only thing. But Barbara Hall's here. Hi, Barb. I'm so happy you're here, Barbara. I was so worried about you. I was about to like stalk you and figure out what was happening, if you were okay. Not what was happening, but like to see if you were okay. So just know that I love you so much that I would have stalked you just to make sure you were okay. Okay. Back to Jodi Arias. So when people hear terms like narcissistic and borderline traits, I want to be clear that these are conceptual frameworks. They're based off of behavioral traits and behavioral characteristics that I teach in abnormal psychology. I am completely up to date with the DSM-5-TR. If you guys don't know what that is, it just stands for the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. We're on the 5th edition, but we're actually on the text revision already. So we've already revised it, but it wasn't revised enough that they felt the need to create a DSM-6. So they had a DSM-4-TR as well, which was the text revision. So this is like the in-between one. And then the next one would be the would be 6. So if I ever say DSM, I'm literally talking about the manual that we go to when we diagnose disorders. Psychological disorders are different in that it's not like you go and you get your blood pressure done and there's a number. Like your blood pressure is 120/80 or whatever it's supposed to be, 120/90, I don't know. But that's a number, right? It's tangible. You're able to quantify it. That's the word I'm looking for. Where when we deal with diagnosing psychological disorders, it's different in that we're going by people's perceived, right, and self-reported symptoms. So based off of somebody's self-reported symptoms, I might put together like I did with the doctor and Jodi Arias in the beginning, right? I might put together commonalities, which is why I said, I wonder if now after the live, when I'm thinking about that doctor, if I apply the things that I have to Jodi Arias's case to his, I'm wondering if that's going to help me understand him even better than I think I already do. So, excuse me. But just remember that I'm not diagnosing anybody. I know I say that all the time, but I have to because there's always going to be somebody that's like, she's done. No, I'm not diagnosing. I'm going off of conceptual frameworks based off of my teachings for the past 22 years. So this is not a diagnosis. But they help us this also helps us to describe patterns like emotional instability, fear of abandonment, and extreme reactions to perceived loss. So again, perceived loss, right? Subjective, Mitch, meaning subjective as opposed to objective. So an objective test would be 2 + 2 equals, there's an answer, right? So the answer is 4. It can't be 5, it can't be 3. 2 + 2 is 4. That's objective. Subjective is, what did you feel like when the time you had your very first kiss? That would be subjective. For one person, it might be like, oh my God, I was so embarrassed or whatever. For another person, it might be like, oh, it was the most beautiful thing. For somebody else, it might be like, all I can remember is that they taste like their breath smelled like garlic. Like you just never know. So, but everybody's perception will be different based off of our own interpretation of our experience. So I'm glad that you asked that because chances are if you had that question, so did others. I tell students that all the time, you guys. So if somebody else ever, no. So objective can also be observed, correct? No, let me tell you why. I guess it technically could be if I'm getting, but I think here with objective, think of statistics. So think of like mean, median, mode. And if people are like, what's that? Think of like numbers, right? So the averages, stuff like that, standard deviation, there's a formula. So like I said, like 2 + 2 = 4, 4 + 1 = 5. Like there is no other way to get to a different number. With a subjective test, a good example of a subjective test, and this is what I'm going to do because of course my dogs want to bark right when I do this, but I'm going to put a subjective test up here and I'm going to literally the door's right there. I'm going to put a subjective test up there and I'm going to come back in like 1 minute, not even, and see what you guys see. So I'm sure that many of you heard of the ink blot test, right? That's like the name that we use for it. It's the Rorschach test, but people know it as the ink blot test. This test was created as a subjective test, meaning that I'm going to show you all a picture, and depending on your own experiences will depend on how you interpret the picture. And there is no right or wrong answer, right? So, which makes it subjective. There is no right or wrong answer. So there isn't like, if you said this, you're right. If you said that, you're wrong. That's not how this works. So I'm going to give you guys an example. I'm pulling up one right now. I just have to link it to the live stream. Accept the cookies. And then let me add it. So let me take this one down real quick. It takes 1 second to re-add it. I'm going to, here we go. So this is what I'm going to show you. Wait, there we go. Put it up nice and big in the middle. Okay, so I'm literally going to go let the dogs out. It takes like literally 20 seconds. But I want you guys to look at this ink blot and for Rorschach test. And I want you to ask yourself, if somebody were to ask me, like if my kid drew this for me or painted this for me at school, I would say, oh, this is a great whatever. And we're going to see what you guys said. You can put it in the chat if you know. And there's no right or wrong answer. Okay. See, I've already done. I'm so excited to see what you guys had to say. Let's see. All right, let me see what you guys had to say. We have a bat, a fruit bat roosting. That's really detailed, right? All this DSM chat makes me want another degree. Do it. You're never too old to do it. I don't know how old you are, but you're never too old. Sharpie's mom. Nora says butterfly, and then Shelly says a moth. Kelly says 2 birds' heads. I love this. I'm so glad. Sharpie's mom has a bachelor in psych and a master's in elementary education, and I want to talk DSM disorders. You can still do that. So there's a way to do that without going back for a degree. Now, if you want to go back for a degree because you want a degree or you want to get your doctorate or something like that, that's a different story. You can always email me, jaimevona@gmail.com. It's Jaime, JAIME, if anybody needs me for anything. But I always tell people, especially at the beginning of a semester, it might take me a minute to get back to you. But I will get back to you. But so what I'm saying is, if you want to go get a different degree for whatever reason, that's fine. But if it's for talking DSM, there's a way that you can utilize what you already have to do that. All right, let's see what else we have here. So we have, oh, I love this. Creepy moth, batter moth, a flower. Coffee says a flower. Oh, I love you back. This is so interesting. So this is why this is so interesting to me, you guys. We have so many different ideas here, right? Everything from a bat to a creepy moth to a crow on both sides to a fruit bat, another bat, 2 birds' heads, a moth, a butterfly, a bat or a moth, a creepy moth, a flower. But how does one person say it looks like a flower and the other one says that it looks like a bat fused with a moth? Like, how does that, do you know what I mean? So back to what I was saying before this about subjective. This is a subjective test in that it depends on you. It depends on your experiences and stuff like that, and even your imagination. If you're somebody that likes to draw, this might have been one thing to you, and for somebody else, somebody in class the other day said it looked like a butterfly in black and white, like a black and white picture of a butterfly. I was like, okay, but again, so yes, Barbara Hall's here. I can see 2 crows or bird's head. I love this. When people could start seeing what other people saw, that is amazing. So let me tell you what that says about you, Harlot. The fact that you were able to see it your way, but then to switch it up based off of what somebody else saw is amazing. And that's probably why you do so good as a mod online for people, because you have a way to connect with people. And that just shows. So this is what I want you to do. That was what I was going to say next. If whatever you said in the chat, I want you to see if you, Andrew, you can see everything but the flower. That's so funny. But I want you guys to see if you can. We have a caterpillar. I want to see if you guys can make it something different based off of what somebody else said. So, like, could you see how somebody gets a moth? Can you see how somebody gets a crow or whatever? So on and so forth. And that part is where, when we talk about emotional intelligence, I'm glad that we did this too for this. When we talk about something like emotional intelligence, it's one thing for me to think that this is a bat or two crows. It's another thing for you to think that it's one thing for me to think it's a bat and for you to think it's a crow. It's another thing for me to see it as a bat and to be able to see it in your shoes as a crow. That's emotional intelligence. Does that make sense? So see if you could switch it up. And if you can, oh, Barbara sees a butterfly. Barbara, that's very optimistic of you. I love that. I love that. But I do want you guys to see if you could switch it up. But with that being said, we're going to take this one down and we're going to go to the next thing. We're going to go back to where we were. Can't stay off of the slides for too long. I'll start to get nervous. Okay, so we already did fear of abandonment and identity collapse. So for her, I see an identity collapse here. Without Travis, I feel like with Travis, this is the thing. I've said this before. So, and I've said this here, and again, no diagnosis, just looking at behavioral traits and conceptual framework. So when we look at borderline personality disorder, right, there is a fear of abandonment. That is at the core of that disorder, right? So with borderline traits or borderline personality disorder, the person, if they feel secure and they feel like, like they have stability, security, really, that's the word I'm looking for. If they feel secure and think of attachment, that's going to help them be solid, if you will. So I think I gave an example. Think of them as liquid jello. When they have a mold, they're solid. They can become solid. If that mold lifts, it goes back to liquid jello, if that makes sense. Okay. So in other words, what we're saying is, in human terms, if you have somebody that has, let's say they have a good job, or let's just say they have it together, like you feel secure around them. You're like, when something happens, they know what to do. When I'm upset, they know what to say, da 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 da. You just feel secure around them. That person, and again, we're talking about the borderline person. That person, the borderline, will feel secure. And to other people, it might even appear that, they've been able to grow, or that they've grown out of borderline. And depending on the situation and how long they're with the person, you could get to a place of I wouldn't say altogether, but you could get to a place of growing through it and living with it, as opposed to it living, taking over you, if you will. So what else do I have here? When people hear terms like narcissistic and borderline traits, oh, I already said that. Okay, so this helps us describe patterns like emotional instability, fear of abandonment, and extreme reactions to perceived loss. So that was awesome that you guys said that. So again, we all remember Jodi Arias. We all remember what Jodi Arias did with Travis Alexander, right? And she not only does all these things, but just like we see with a lot of other narcissistic personality traits, we see that she thought she was she thought she was smarter than what she was. And I would argue that that's a common theme with a lot of the offenders, male and female, that we've talked about since I've been on YouTube for the past 6 months or so. So, and that is a common theme, right? They all think that they're smarter than the average bear. And some of them are smarter on paper, right? But not smarter in the sense that I thought of everything and I'm not going to get caught. They're never going to think it's me. Jodi, she had gas cans and everything so that she didn't have to stop and get gas. She goes to Travis's with dyed hair, so she changes her hair color, goes to Travis's. That way, if anybody did see her or if anybody caught her outside, they could say it was a girl with brown hair and bangs. That's not Jodi. She was a blonde bombshell, right? So they're the things. I'm so sorry, you guys. I have to let them back in. Everybody went to bed. So sorry. Okay. they're in, so they shouldn't bother me for the rest of the stream. Well, unless it gets 12:30, then Thor loves to bother me. Oh, Thor's like, move your stuff. I want to come up there. All right, Thor, you can come up. Come on. Come on, co-host. All right, so I apologize. Back to this again. But if anybody has any questions about Jodi Arias, put like an emoji or a couple, I don't know, stars or something so that I know that you're definitely asking me a question, and then I'll be able to answer it better. Okay, so I think it's a trait of criminality. Hubris is a trait of criminality. People afraid of getting caught aren't going to commit a crime unless they've given up on life. Yeah, right? So that's the whole, I can do this and get away with it. You know what I mean? BK, and I don't mean Burger King. That is too funny. Oh, we know who you mean. Definitely. What does it say? Oh, no. You guys, it'll come up and then it goes away, but then it comes back up. So I started reading one. Thank you, Cuff You. Cuff You put the National Domestic V hotline. Thank you. You really are the best. I appreciate that. 1-800-799-SAFE. So if anybody needs that, please call. Do not hesitate. They know about all of the things that people do and say to, keep you in the relationship. So they're already aware of those things, and they are qualified and trained on how to get you out of a situation safer than, let's say, your friend that you're talking to online that went through it themselves. And I'm not saying that person isn't helpful. They absolutely are. But I would say that if you're in that situation, that you should get the backing of a hotline or support group like this. So I think this is great. A lot of people don't like to call. You could text START to 88788. I love that. Thank you, Cuffy. So you could text START, START, to 88788 for help if you are experiencing domestic V. Oh, yeah, let's hope. Oh, Thor already went from attached to obsessive. Look, he's right here. He's like, Mom, look. Oh, you didn't do nothing bad, did you? Oh, no, you're good. I had to look at his collar. Do you guys remember? The other week, he straight rolled around in crap, like literally. I had to give him a bit. It was a mess. Okay, let's go to our next person so that we're not on the live until 4 a.m. Okay, ready? So, oh no, wait, I missed one. Oh no, wait, my things aren't in order. Hold on. Oh yes, they are. I just went too quick. Our next one is Gypsy Rose Blanchard. So I have here victim or offender. I did that for obvious reasons. That was more of to catch people's attention to. So what do you guys think? My question here that I have for chat is, can someone be both a victim and an offender? What do you think? Can someone be both a victim and an offender? And for some of you, this answer is going to be obvious, but curiosity, both. Yeah, I think so too. Yes, Thor was so gross. That was so gross. It was funny, Barbara, because you didn't have to clean. I literally, I don't even want to get into it and make me sick. It was a shitty situation. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so we have both here. So a lot of people think that you could be both. So you can be, but she's only an offender. Yeah, so when I said can you be, I didn't mean is she. That would be a different thing. So I don't know what you guys think. So if we, I'll wait a little bit so that we don't have overlap on answers. But next I'll ask, do you think Gypsy is offender, victim, or both? Okay. All right. Victim who learns. Oh, interesting. Victim who leans. That is a way that learns that that's a way to operate or live. So that would be what we call malingering. So Sky Pain, I'm so happy I just read that, because my thing from the very beginning was that I see a lot of malingering here, which is where you start out with one thing, but it continues, usually for something like financial gain. and it is my opinion, and I think most of you know this, that you that I believe that Dee Dee, and again, I always think two people dance together, right? So, and when I say this doesn't mean that, if somebody's doing something awful, that the other one is doing something bad too. That's not necessarily what I mean. But what I mean is it takes two as far as, or in, I'm going to look at that in a minute. I have my specialization in marriage and family therapy. So with couples therapy, one of the things that we're taught very early on is that two people dance together. And again, this doesn't mean, if somebody's being abused, it's like, okay, well, what did the other person do? We're not saying that the other person did something bad. It could just be that the other person is still, maybe, some people might make an excuse. Let's say you have an alcoholic spouse and they miss work tomorrow because they're drunk again. You're not going to want them to get fired, right? Because that's going to be both your livelihoods, not just theirs. If you're counting on that to pay the mortgage, we tend to think of those things as well, right? So in that case, you might find yourself enabling the behavior for those reasons. And again, does that mean that you're doing something bad? No, it's just that's how it works. It's like, so the one person continues one thing and the other person responds in another way. And again, this isn't about right and wrong. It's about how we see the dance, if you will, of dysfunction, the dysfunctional dance. There you go. So there you go. So then I also have here that Gypsy Rose is one of the most psychologically complex cases that we've talked about in a while. And a big part of this is because we have coercive control a little bit here. We have some medical child abuse, or at least that's what's claimed. I don't know that I'd say that Dee Dee had factitious disorder imposed on another or Munchausen by proxy in the sense of where maybe I thought she did. Right? Oh yeah, narcissists. Yes, they definitely think they're victims. That's funny. It's always about them, and it's always somebody else's fault or something else's fault. It could be the chair's fault. It could be the person's fault. Anything, people, places, or things. Right? Neuro. Definitely, I agree with you. Hey, you guys, welcome in. I love seeing all these faces in here. Well, not seeing, you guys know what I mean. With the medical child abuse, what I mean by that, and I know that there is, that is like the thing that people debate, where I think that Dee Dee, and again, we're not talking about death here, we're talking about their relationship, where I think that she plays a role is that after her mother dies, I think that from Gypsy's dad leaving and then the mom dying, that felt like probably like abandonment over again. And I think that she probably needed to go seek counseling and didn't, and started acting out in different ways. And I believe that, we know for a fact that she's been arrested for things like check fraud, stuff like that. We know that her and Gypsy would go to Walmart, for example, and they would both, they would steal things. Gypsy was like, and this is the thing. At some point, Gypsy knows, the difference between right and wrong, right? So Gypsy starts allegedly, in my opinion, doing these things, knowing that she might get away with it. And then what happens is the person gets away with it once, not once, but they get away with it that first time. And it's almost like a rush, like, oh, wow, like, did I really get away with that? And then you do it again. And it's like, well, I got away with that. So on and so forth until it winds up becoming something, that it winds up becoming part of the person's identity, if you will. So that is an important part of this. And I do think that Gypsy, in my opinion, is more of an offender here than we see a victim, to be honest. But I do think that there was, in other words, if Gypsy was raised by different parents, let's say, or a different parent, the situation could have turned out differently. I do think that a lot of rewards and punishments, entitlement, modeling behavior, I think all of that plays a role here. And then even things like malingering, where, and again, it's nobody's fault. When we say two people dance together, I'm not saying that the people that, the charities that gave her trips and different privileges and things like that. They didn't do anything wrong, right? But they're affected now because I think of the one thing where she was able to go around and play the character with the pink superhero thing. I forget the name of it. I apologize. But in that case, she was already 20 something years old. Like that should have went to somebody under 18. That was a kid's charity. So now there's other kids that could have, done that or been that role. And Gypsy takes it away from them, knowing, and in my opinion, she knows her age. There's no world where I don't see how Gypsy doesn't know how old she is. She even admits that she like her birthday and stuff start getting mixed up when the whole Katrina thing happens, right? If I didn't like when I did a little bit of digging, she was 14, you guys. My daughter's 17. There's no way that 3 years ago I could have told my daughter that, or like 2 years ago, I could have said you're 15 again type thing. And then, because you would have to think about it, right? If you know that you're 14 up until then, and this all happens by 23, we're talking about what, 7, 8, 9 years? Like that's not that much time. So more than half of those years would have had to be double. And we're talking about your teenage years. Like you can remember your 15th or 16th birthday, in my opinion. And I think when we look at those videos, she straight tells Nick in the one, she's like, well, I'm really 23. So like she clearly knows our age, in my opinion. Okay, let me keep going or I'm never going to get through this. Okay, psychologically, this is not a crime rooted in just entitlement or rage. It's rooted in escape cognition, just meaning. So when you hear cognition, think of the thought process. So, oh, Allie, it's okay. Allie just tried to get up on the chair and didn't all the way make it on the couch. Oh, Allie, wait, you guys, I have to help her. I feel it. Come here, Al. Want to go up here? Come on, I'll help you. Come here, Allie, girl. Good. Good girl. Thor, leave her alone. Thor, move over. Oh my God, that was so sad, you guys. Ellie just tried to get up on the couch and didn't make it, but I just went in and boosted her like cheerleading, so she made it. Thor, can you move over a little bit? Thor can like jump high. Oh, that was sad. She just tried to jump up and like came back down. That breaks my heart. I teach 8 and 9-year-olds. They are annoying but smart AF. Exactly. Could you imagine telling the 8 or 9-year-old that you're 9 again? Like what? So I don't know about all that. But over here, I think Gypsy's case is one where we see maybe victim at first and then turns to offender and continues on that offender. So much so that I feel like so many of us, including myself, oh, thank you, Sky, that I feel like even myself that I was duped. And I feel like I'm pretty good at reading people and stuff like that. I just never really had an opportunity to view her specifically. Like I only saw the things that were done on documentaries and Dr. Phil and those things. I didn't really get to see like, a TV show where we could see how she is on the side type thing. Our next offender is Mackenzie Shirella. So I have here impulsivity with deadly outcomes, right? So this is the one that drove 90 miles an hour into a brick wall, killing her boyfriend and her friend Davion, and she could have been killed herself. She's lucky that she lives, but she lives. So she's in jail now for 15 years to life for their deaths. With Mackenzie Shirella, development matters, you guys. And if anybody is interested in this case and interested in development and how it plays a role, I did an entire video. It's one of my longest talking videos. Not talking, like there's pictures and videos and stuff like that in it as well. But I meant as far as usually my videos, they're not over 8 minutes type thing. This one was 40 minutes. So if anybody's interested, I break the whole thing down. I break it down like you would get in class pretty much. Development matters here. Adolescents and young adults already have an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex. So that's the front part of the brain that's responsible for decision-making, impulse control, problem solving. It's like the executive functioning part of the brain. It's not done developing until you're approximately 24, 25 years old. All right, let's see. So we have to layer that into intense romantic attachment and emotional dysregulation. And what do? You get high risk decision making under emotional flooding, is what I wrote. So this case raises hard questions about intent versus immaturity and how control can show up not only as domination, but as reckless desperation. Okay, so let me say that part again because I think that's important. This case raises hard questions about intent versus immaturity and how control can show up not just as domination, but as reckless desperation. And that's what I think we see here. All right, next person. Okay, Brooke Schuyler Richardson. So this is shame and concealment. So Brooke is, in my opinion, driven by shame, not necessarily aggression. And this is the case of the cheerleader who hides her pregnancy, then has the baby, wraps the baby in like multiple layers, puts it in the closet. I feel bad saying it. I just don't know. Puts them, let's say them, because it's not in it. I just don't remember the gender or the sex of the baby. So puts them in the closet and then goes to class, right? And it was her roommates that go in the closet because they thought something was up. And they find the baby, they call the police, so on and so forth, right? Here, I think when you look into her story, and again, all of these are absolutely wrong, right? So this is just as wrong as the others. The thing here is, though, I think she was thinking of her family and her culture and how that could, how this might make her family look. She's not married. I don't know if she knew who the dad was. I mean, I don't know. She could have very well known. I have no idea. But there's many layers here that could make somebody feel shame or, shame here. So this case centers on identity threat. So identity threat. So the fear of exposure, fear of disappointing others, like her parents, and, other family members, fear of losing a carefully curated self-image. She had the self-image as like the girl next door, all the things. And that image in her mind, her perception was that image could crush what you would otherwise see as her identity. Psychologically, concealment often happens when someone believes disclosure will destroy their entire life's narrative. That's pretty much what I was trying to say. I articulated it much better when I wrote this, so that's exactly what I'm saying. I said it twice, pretty much. I apologize. This is panic-based cognition. So remember, cognition is the thought process. So short-term survival thinking rather than long-term planning. So what do you guys see here for chat? Do you see fear here or calculation? Fear or calculation? So what I'm asking of you here is, do you see fear or escalation? Oh, you're not even talking to me. I don't think we need a professional to diagnose. Wait, what's that? Yeah, I agree. Don't think we need a professional to diagnose. I'm not diagnosing. I said, see, didn't I tell you guys that I could say it 1,000 times and somebody will still say I'm diagnosing and I'm not? Clear as day in the DSM-5 and her actions and attitude portray. Yeah, so thank you for saying that. This is all based on, like I was saying before, just looking at behavioral patterns. I've been doing this for a long time, and you guys don't need a professional. There's thousands of channels, right? So if I'm not the person that you want to get the information from, that's 100% your prerogative. But I do have experience, and I'm not good at everything, but I'm good at this stuff. So I feel like I do have something to add. And if somebody wants to hear it, I'm here. And if not, then you're not. So you're not familiar with this offender. So again, she hid her teenage pregnancy. She was a fear of exposure and identity threat. Perfectionism and denial is a lot of the things that we see. And there was denial in many cases here. I'm going to have to do her a separate whole live of just her, because I think I touched upon her story like I am now, but I didn't do like a whole live on it, which I think I need to do. So then we have panic-driven decision-making. I don't think that she really thought through, like, if I do this, I could go to jail. I could be like, I don't think, like, I think she went through, if I go through with having the baby, I might be, how strict were her parents? So truth, I think it was more of like a, you'll embarrass our family name. Like how could you have a kid out of wedlock? You're in school. Like, what if she's not dating the father? Like, what if it was like a one night stand? I don't know this to be true. I'm just saying. But there are many reasons why people, why culture and traditional values could in itself um, be a reason for someone to feel shame in this sense. Okay. Wasn't meaning you're self-diagnosing anyone. Sorry, Mike. Oh, Mike Holland. Okay. Oh, okay. Cool. You guys are awesome. Awesome. Okay, good. So then the next one, do you guys think that this was fear-based or calculated behavior, if you know about the case enough to say? Like, do you think she was being calculated and that she was like, I'm going to have this baby and then get rid of it? Or do you think, it was more of, I don't know what to do. I didn't tell anybody. She lied about it the entire time. So, she could have thought that. And I'm sure people, I mean, if you guys look at pictures, I don't know, there's only so much you could say that you ate tacos or a burrito. Like, I feel like if I was her friend, I would have definitely been like, hey, what's going on? You got to tell us something? Okay. Next, we have Casey Anthony. So with Casey Anthony, True's twin, I have to remind everyone that she was found not guilty. She was found guilty, though, of lying to the police. And in this case, the reason we have her up here, too, is that her story keeps changing here, right? So I put narrative instability. So with Casey Anthony, the defining psychological feature is this instability. So we see repeated story changes, emotional incongruence, just meaning that the emotion doesn't match the situation. So this would be like laughing at a funeral type thing, where it's not matching, and persistent impression management. So she was also big on how she looked to others, and she wanted to manage that. So what's striking is the emotional detachment under scrutiny. Psychologically, this suggests avoidance coping. When reality is too threatening to mix together, it gets deflected. So whether people are believing in guilt or innocence here for the Casey Anthony case, this case highlights how some individuals survive psychologically, but never fully confronting responsibility. Okay? So she has survived out there. She's figured out a way to do it. But in my opinion, her story changes. So my question to you is, do story changes signal deception or avoidance? So in other words, is her story changing because she's lying or because she wants to avoid the truth? What do you think? She steals his pension money today. Oh, wait. Wow. Wow. Great question. Thank you. So again, do we think that she is just, lying, or is she avoiding the inevitable, if you will? Okay, so then over here, I think this might be my last slide. Let's see. Oh, no, wait, I have one more. All right, I have two more, you guys, and then we're done, I promise. Okay, so what do these cases have in common? I did one in common, one differ. So in common, despite how different these cases are, several themes, in my opinion, repeat. So these are the behavioral consistencies that I see amongst these 5 cases. One, we have an identity threat. I know I always go to identity and attachment, but they're the 2 things that I would consider myself, most interested in and most passionate about. And therefore, I've educated myself and, formal education where I've learned about these things. So identity threat is the fear of losing self, status, or attachment. We see that with all of them. Attachment and security relationships as emotional lifelines. You having somebody else, the problem with having somebody else as your lifeline is if something happens to that person, what does that mean for you, right? So you really have to anchor your identity within yourself, even within like your God, things like that. But don't ever tie it to somebody else because, again, in the absence of that person, then what happens? So then we have narrative control, shaping the story to survive psychologically, which we just talked about with Casey, and then perceived entrapment. I had no other option type of thinking. So these patterns don't excuse behavior, but they help understand how people get there. So my chat question here was, which of these themes feels most powerful to you? Which of the themes up here is most powerful to you? Identity, threat, attachment, and security narrative. You could just write identity, attachment, narrative, or entrapment. And while you do that, I'm going to go to the last slide. I feel like nauseous all of a sudden. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm like having a hot flash. Oh, you guys, maybe I'm going through that menopause thing. Ugh. Narrative control. That's interesting. Interesting. Identity. I love doing this, you guys. It's so interesting. Attachment. You guys, we got 3 of them. That is awesome. That is great. We have narrative control, identity, another narrative control, and then attachment. Interesting. Menopause, right? I feel like I'm dying. I don't know what's happening right now. Okay, so let me get to this last part in case I feel like I'm going to throw up or something, because I really do. So psychology doesn't excuse behavior, but it explains how ordinary fears, when taken to extremes, can lead to extraordinary harm. I'm going to say that again because I think it's important. Psychology doesn't excuse behavior, but it explains how ordinary fears, when taken to extremes, can lead to extraordinary harm. We're looking at things like brain and development as far as your age and how the brain develops, abuse history here versus personal dynamics, planning versus impulsivity, and public reaction, which shaped by gender roles. So we see that as well. Okay, you guys, I made it through. So does anybody have any questions about anything? You guys did great as a class tonight. Amazing. If anybody missed my live with Daniel, oh really? Soda or I don't know what's happening. Is that normal to feel nauseous? Oof. Maybe I have to eat something. I don't know. All right, you guys, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go because I don't want to get sick on live. That would not be good. I am going to go get something to drink and do something. What is percent of partner homicide? Wait, what is the percent? What do you mean in males? Like how many males as opposed to females? That's a good question, and I don't know the answer, to be honest, off the top of my head. But I will look that up for next time. Thank you, guys. I'm fine. I really think it's the menopause that I don't want to admit that I think it might be. I'll get through it. I'll be fine. I also did multiple lives tonight, so I'm also tired for that too. But with that being said, I will make sure that I look. Benadryl for nausea. Thank you. Peppermint. That's right. Hot flashes alone can cause nausea. Wow. You guys all make me feel like I'm not doing this alone. Ugh, I hate how it makes you feel. It's terrible. All right, you guys, with that being said, thank you all for joining me. Thank you to my mods. I couldn't do this without you. And I look forward to doing this again. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.